Chapter 3. Truth. I wait patiently in a small wooden chair, trying my best not to eavesdrop, but latching onto fragments of the muffled conversation anyway. Yes, I know. Well, it's not an exact science, the familiar voice explains. Anxious but assured. There's a variation in every breed. Yes, I know. Understood. The talking abruptly halts as a landline phone slams back down onto its wooden desk. There's a brief moment of silence, then footsteps marching toward the office that flies open moments later. Hi, Rose. Come on in. Dr. Smith offers, smiling warmly to greet me. My therapist is a bespectacled, bearded man with soft features and kind eyes that always seem to bear a look of deep concern, whether I'm telling him something important or not. He's relatively short and his hair is a stark white, still sitting thick atop the man's head despite his age. Our sessions typically occur on a set monthly schedule, but today he's fitting me in. I used to love days off from school, Dr. Smith reveals as we step into his office. Motioning toward my usual leather chairs, he takes a seat in his own. Dentist appointments, doctor visits. Now I know it can be scary, but I always look forward to missing some class. Dr. Smith chuckles to himself as he says this, thrilled by the rebellious nature of his childhood. He settles into his chair even more, allowing this blue and white piece of furniture to envelop him. The striped colors pop against the leathery tones of his otherwise academic basement office. My parents thought I should come in first thing, I reply. And what do you think? Dr. Smith continues. I mull this question over. I think they're right, I finally offer. I've been under a lot of stress. Dr. Smith nods, but doesn't say anything. He stares quietly, waiting for me to continue. Who were you talking to just now? I ask. Dog breeder, he replies, but we're not here to talk about my Newfoundland puppy. More silence. The pressure of this reticent moment hanging over us, like a sword above John the Baptist's neck. I saw something strange yesterday, I finally inform him. Really strange. I was at the falls with some friends, and I could have sworn I saw a lady in the woods. She was odd looking, but, I didn't think much of it. She disappeared pretty quickly. Odd looking? What was so odd looking? Dr. Smith asks, jotting down a few notes. I close my eyes for a moment, picturing the woman's bizarre face. I breathe in and out slowly, settling into the darkness, and then allowing this aberrant figure to emerge from behind the wings of my subconscious brain. In my mind's eye, this stranger is even paler than I'd thought, her skin wrinkled and saggy, but not with age. It's as though she's waterlogged, bones and membrane with nothing but putrid liquid hanging between them. She's frightening, I offer. Her hair is long and black, and it's patchy. It looks like it's falling out. She's got crooked, dirty teeth, and her eyes are white. My brain is taking brief, fragmented glimpses and sewing them together, completing a picture that felt quite abstract up until this point. In this dark room I've manifested, my gaze drifts down to her hands, coming to rest on something I hadn't considered much until now. I think her fingers are very long. I continue. They stretch out like sharp white sticks. Sounds like you've got a pretty good look for her, my therapist offers, prompting me to open my eyes again. Not really, I reply, shaking my head. Sure seems like it though. Dr. Smith continues, gently adjusting his perfectly round glasses. Unless your imagination is doing some heavy lifting. A defensive surge pulses through me. What are you saying? I counter. Just observing. Dr. Smith replies, deftly maintaining his open and warm demeanor. We sit in silence for another long moment, allowing our conversation to settle. I can't help letting my eyes wander to the assortment of plaques mounted on his wall, the metallic rectangles hanging around him in an authoritative halo. Do you think she's real? My therapist finally asks, cutting to the chase. My immediate instinct is to defend myself, but in the name of objectivity, I somehow manage to pull back on the reins. I don't know, I finally reply. When your parents called, they mentioned something about you seeing this woman walk into the closet? Your father followed her in, correct? I nod. And what happened? She wasn't there, I admit. Dr. Smith takes a deep breath and lets it out, shifting his weight a bit. I'm disappointed in you, he finally announces. I speak with plenty of young children who see monsters in their closets. But you're not a child anymore, Rose. I know, I reply, shaking my head. But what about the flies? Something strange is going on. Swallowing that much insect larva is a medical emergency. It could cause someone a lot of stress, and stress is no good. Dr. Smith continues. Stress can make even perfectly rational people see things that aren't really there. I lower my head a bit, shaking it from side to side as I struggle to sort through everything. Something feels very wrong. As if the whole wide world is in on some joke that I'm completely oblivious to. Things aren't quite adding up, but I can't for the life of me figure out how the pieces actually fit. Everyone is telling me to chill out and de-stress. But this feeling of being pulled apart like a baby before King Solomon is perfectly normal as I take the leap into adulthood. Right now, however, it certainly doesn't feel normal. I want to trust my elders and my community, yearn for that familiar blanket of security. But the proposed retelling of these events is simply refusing to fall in line. What if it's a demon? I question. Dr. Smith hesitates. I can tell he's forcing himself to shift gears, to approach this particular topic from a calculated angle. Demons are real, he bluntly replies, his eyes now burning into mine. You and I both know that. But they're also not little guys running around with pitchforks and horns. And they're certainly not scary ladies in red polo shirt uniforms. Demons manifest abstractly through addiction and sin and moral decay. They manifest through temptation. So I guess my question back to you is, have you felt any temptation lately? I shake my head confidently. No. Sometimes when we're feeling something we know is wrong, it's hard for us to accept responsibility, Dr. Smith explains. We create something or someone, like a monster in the closet or an imaginary friend, and we place the blame on them. When that happens, there's only one way to stop it. We must turn away from the feelings that create the monster. We must reject the temptation. I'm listening, but I remain quiet. I drum out a few patterns on my fingers, the soft movement enough that Dr. Smith won't notice. He laughs to himself a bit. Truth be told, most of the time it doesn't get this far. People tend to turn away from their demons once things get truly frightening. Have you ever heard of Petrov's dogs? Pavlov's dogs, I correct him. Dr. Smith just brushes past my amendment, barreling onward. Petrov rang a bell every time he presented his dogs with food. He did this for a long time, training them until one day he rang the bell and delivered no food. Even though there was no food, the canine bodies reacted to his bell, salivating profusely. Now what do you think would happen if he scared the dogs every time he rang this bell? They'd be afraid of the bell, I replied flatly. He nods. God is ringing a bell for you, Rose. He's telling you to steer clear of temptation. But you're much more thoughtful than the other pups. You're curious, and that can be a virtue. But it can also be a curse. Do you know what happened to the dogs that were too unruly for Petrov's research? They didn't have to worry about someone experimenting on their salivary glands, I say. Dr. Smith smiles. They were taken out back and shot in the head. That's not how the scientific method should work, I counter. God doesn't use the scientific method. So I'll ask you again, Rose. Do you have any temptation in your life? I hesitate, and then confidently shake my head no. Dr. Smith lets my reply marinate for an uncomfortably long time. Finally, he relaxes. Well, that's good. Maybe what's going on here seems to be some massive cataclysmic event. What we're really looking at is a stressed out young woman at the end of her senior year. When you consider your tenant intensives plus kindergarten, that's a 15-year journey. Every child raised in Kingdom of the Pine takes 2 years away from traditional schooling to study the tenets, focusing on respect and integrity after 5th grade, then service and excellence after 10th. Dr. Smith knocks twice on the arm of his chair as the tension dissipates from the room. What I'd recommend is a hearty dose of fun, my therapist enthusiastically suggests. Your parents let me know you're going to Isaiah's birthday party tonight after school. They did? I ask. Dr. Smith leans in a bit, lowering his voice as though he's letting me in on a little secret. All this despite the fact there's nobody else in the room to overhear us. What I think you should do is just have a good time, you know? Let loose a bit. The congregation understands that kids are going to be kids. That's what these youth excursions are all about. Okay, I reply with a nod. Good. Dr. Smith offers in return, slapping his knees and standing up. He strolls over to the office door and opens it, waiting for me to follow his lead. Oh, we don't need a long session today. This was just a little checkup. I stand and head for the door. Have fun with Isaiah, my therapist imparts with a wink. Sure, I reply, trying my best to sound enthusiastic. Dr. Smith closes the door. These people are trying to marry her off to Isaiah, and it's so fucking gross. Oh, Chuck, you're a good writer, but Dr. Smith closes the door, plunging me into a stuffy silence of a church basement once again. I stand uncomfortably for a moment, still struggling to process our conversation. I came here for answers, but the dichotomy of blooming at the depths of my soul still sits awkward and jagged. Eventually, I make my way up to the main floor of the church. At least this Cop Talk, or Kingdom of the Pine Therapeutic Outreach Center, is located conveniently, positioned just a few blocks from school and easily walkable. I wave to some familiar volunteers and head out into the sun on my quest for second period calculus. It's a beautiful day, and as I amble along, I can feel some of my haunting anxiety beginning to slip away. I'm relieved, but there's one thing that still lingers in the back of my mind. I hadn't mentioned the red work polo my intruder was wearing before Dr. Smith brought it up in our session. Not to him, not to my parents. Or maybe I did, and it just slipped my mind. Shake my head, rattling loose any doubt that still desperately clings tight. I need to take the advice I've already received and just relax. Have a good time. Especially given the fact that my parents are actually letting me attend a mixed party this evening with both Kingdom of the Pine and secular kids in attendance. Hopefully things with Isaiah won't be too weird, I think to myself. At least Martina's gonna be there. There's a faint tickle at the back of my throat, but I ignore it. I gaze across the suburban basement packed with friends and classmates, the whole gang spreading out before me in a perfectly imperfect balance. As though they were placed here by some artful Renaissance painter. Veronese, maybe. Veronese, maybe. Music is blasting from the nearby stereo, and fellow students struggle to shout over it as they lean casually against the walls or laugh together in small pods. Any observer might see this as a quintessential teenage party scene, but a careful eye reveals assorted crucifix jewelry and t-shirts sporting various God-centric catchphrases. I'm feeling reasonably confident thanks to my social preparation routine. A large note card of potential discussion topics, interesting facts, and small talk questions. This card is folded and tucked away in my pocket for quick reference. Though I don't think that'll be necessary. I spent enough time on this one to recite it from memory. The word muscle is derived from a Latin term, meaning little mouse. The shortest sentence in the Bible is 2 words. Do you know what they are? What are your biggest fears? Most of the partiers are holding red cups, but these plastic goblets are full of root beer, not beer. And the safe yet faintly abrasive music is upbeat Christian pop punk with a positive message. I love it. Suffice to say, this whole experience is a lot less intimidating than I expected. Of course, half these kids are members of the congregation anyway, people I've known since I was a child. The other half are Neverton citizens who may not be Kingdom of the Pine members, but they're God-fearing enough for our parents to approve. Neverton is quaint in size, but strong in Christian presence thanks to Camp Damascus. While Kingdom of the Pine remains a modest sect internationally, this town is chock full of believers, a stronghold of faith. Despite the chaos yesterday, I actually find myself feeling pretty normal again, happy to begrudgingly accept these strange events as nothing more than a natural buildup of stress in a young, exhausted mind. Hey, comes a familiar voice. I glance over to find Isaiah, the man of the hour, sliding up beside me. He hoists his plastic cup, and the two of us give a hearty cheers, taking sips of the carbonated beverage. Root beer was created in 1866 and first commercially available in 1875. It was sold in syrup form and made from sassafras root, which has been banned for causing cancer. The plan was to call it root tea, but the name was changed at the last minute in an attempt to capture the Pennsylvania coal miner market. Congratulations, Ren, on doing the thing. That's not one from the card. I just know my root beer. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. Isaiah continues, yanking me back from my journey into beverage history. I wasn't sure you'd make it after the way I acted. It's fine, I offer, still gazing at the party. No, it's not. Isaiah continues. I turn to face the birthday boy, giving him my full attention and making sure he believes I genuinely accepted his apology. Truth be told, this little moment of forgiveness is the last thing on my conscious mind. Thank you for saying something, I reply, struggling to give my voice enough emotional weight so we can finally move on. The regret in my friend's expression melts away, gradually transforming into a smile. We stand for a moment, sipping our drinks and gazing out across the party. The music does a great job of filling in space between the break in our conversation, but I'm still not all that comfortable just standing here. The word muscle is derived from a Latin term that means little muscle, little mouse. The word muscle is derived from a Latin term that means little mouse, I blurt. What? Isaiah asks, although I'm not sure if he couldn't hear me or if he could hear me and just doesn't know how to respond. I stare at him blankly, my mind seizing up. Hey, come with me. Isaac finally offers, shifting gears. The next thing I know, he's taking me by the hand and leading me through the open floor plan of this crowded basement. Peers immediately turn and watch us go, whispering to one another with looks of tittering excitement. Soon enough, we're making our way down a dark hallway, the music growing quieter and the raucous atmosphere evolving into a relative calm. We reach a door and Isaiah pushes through to reveal a small circle of friends sitting cross-legged on the floor. A television is on behind them, playing Christian music videos and casting the proceedings in an eerie dancing light. It's muted. Want to play Truth or Dare? Isaiah asks. My first instinct is to decline and retreat, disappearing back into the watch of the party. But before I get the chance, I catch sight of Martina chatting away within the circle. Immediately, my demeanor changes and I struggle to act natural as I heartily accept. Yeah, I chirp, climbing down to join the others. Sounds fun. I've never played Truth or Dare, and to be honest, the prospect sounds terrifying. Still, I find myself compelled to sit. Martina is one of the coolest people I know, and maybe spending a little more time around her will help some of that innate coolness rub off on me. It appears the game has already started when Isaiah and I join. The group loosened up after several rounds of wild dares and raunchy questions. Morgan, a guy I know from school, has just completed his dare and is now tasked with selecting another target. His eyes slowly move around the circle, drifting from person to person. He's careful not to rush this important decision, finally arriving on the last option I'd ever want. Me. Rose. Truth or dare? Morgan asks, a mischievous flicker in his eye. A hush falls over the crowd, and as I take on their undivided attention. It's a simple enough decision with only 2 possible outcomes, presented in each just as mysterious as the other, yet I find myself utterly tongue-tied. When the awkward silence becomes truly unbearable, I somehow manage to spit out a single word. Truth. Morgan nods. A pleased king who has formally accepted my response. All right, he offers, chewing his lip as he considers the query. Morgan has suddenly been thrust into the position of incredible power, and he wants to make the most of it. Along with the expected tension of this moment, I get the feeling something else is going on behind the scenes, some inside joke I'm clearly not a part of. While most eyes remain trained on me, other kids are quietly shooting glances at Isaiah. Okay, Morgan finally begins. How many times have you done it? The circle immediately reacts, quietly chattering with excited guesses over the answer to come. I pick up tiny fragments of these whispered conversations, nuggets of brutal honesty that bubble faintly across my ears. There's a clear consensus to the guesses. 0. She's 2 years older, though, someone murmurs. All Kingdom kids are. Doesn't matter. Virgin, comes a confident reply. I feel a flush of anxiety wash over me, and I'm well aware that my face is turning red despite my best efforts to remain calm. I laugh awkwardly, shaking my head and immediately pushing the question out of my mind. I don't know. I stammer, my fingers dancing a mile a minute. I force them to stop moving. Morgan raises an eyebrow. You don't know? This reply was instinctual. A sympathetic response straight from the medulla, with no rhyme or reason other than a quick release social eject button. But in this moment of panic, a flash of vivid imagery slips through my mind. I see the same arresting, dark-haired girl I pictured last night. I imagine her kissing me deeply and feel the weight of her body against mine. I sense flashes of a mischievous smile, of her voice, and of the comfort I feel when she's close. Meanwhile, the attention of the circle remains fully transfixed, waiting for a coherent response. Let me think about it. I falter, struggling to right the ship. That many? Someone loudly jokes, causing a wave of laughter to erupt across the group. More flashes of the beautiful black-haired girl rip through me. Memories of an aching, burning sensation at the pit of my stomach. Impressions of warm, bare skin. Her face is right there at the forefront of my mind. Olive complexion and startling dark, wide-set eyes that make it seem like her pupils are filling the whole iris. From where I'm sitting, there is a direct view of the muted television. The screen is dancing with light and movement, showing off familiar clips of a bleach blonde, spiky-haired punk band with crucifix tattoos. Slowly, however, the images begin to roll and mutate, hues shifting as these visual representations become more and more difficult to understand. Random bursts of intermittent analog snow pierce the transmission. I'm the only one who notices, my eyes glued to the screen with fascination and confusion. Rose? Morgan continues, a hint of genuine concern now coloring his tone. By now, the music videos have disappeared completely as another set of images struggles to push through the static. I can faintly make out the blurry shape of a bald, humanoid figure in a chair, their body held tight by a series of straps. The body is slumped over, and as this scene grows clearer, I notice additional captive figures in the dim light, the shapes restrained in a variety of awkward, painful poses. Some of the forms are bent backwards over outlandish metal contraptions, while others are fastened upside down against the stone wall. The transmission hue has been skewed a deep red, giving these characters a bizarre, otherworldly look. A nauseated sickness floods my stomach as I watch, but nothing could make me tear my eyes away. Curiosity has gotten the best of me. Back in the realm of reality, a circle of friends is vying for my attention, waving and shouting my name as they struggle to break the trance. I know they're here, but my attention is fixated elsewhere. On screen, the point of view camera creeps onward, making its way through this chamber of crimson figures. It passes the chair-bound form and arrives at another body, this one twisted haphazardly over the metal bar and locked into place by multiple straps. Closer and closer, this visual perspective draws, details sharpening until a horrific realization surges through me and my breath catches in my throat. The television hue is just fine. These figures are deep red because they're missing their skin. The camera is so close now, I can make out every detail of these mutilated corpses. The ripples of muscle and sinew glistening under dim light. The face of this particular body is hauntingly still, eyes glazed over, in a reminder of just how delicate our mortal shells really are. It's utterly repulsive, yet I cannot bring myself to look away. Suddenly, a breath of freezing cold air visibly pulses from the lips of the luminous face on screen. Still gasping despite their fully peeled state, they're alive. I let out a startled scream, the imagery finally too much to handle as I scramble away from the television. The room of friends immediately flies into a state of chaos, classmates glancing between the screen and me. One of the partiers jumps to their feet and hurries over to the television set, turning it off in frustration. "This is why we don't watch secular media," he announces. "I thought it was funny to put on a terror film." Someone else rolls their eyes. "Holy cow, we're not all Kingdom kids here. God has better things to worry about than scary movie." "Hey," Isaiah snaps, pointing to them, then motioning towards the door. "Not cool. Go." The pandemonium is a lot to keep up with as my body reels from the shock of this grotesque imagery. Isaiah puts his hand on my shoulder in an effort to calm me down. And this human connection actually helps pull me back to a reality. "Hey, it was just a movie," Isaiah offers. "It's just makeup and effects." I nod along, half listening. "Liberal Hollywood will do anything to make money," Isaiah continues. "That kind of violence is disgusting, but it's not real, it's fake." I keep nodding, gradually starting to believe him. Of course it's fake. I take a deep breath, hold, then let it out. Now mostly terrified by what a fool I've made of myself. Hoping to craft a social antidote, I abruptly sit up straight and pull it together. "Sorry," I blurt. "Let's keep playing." The crowd begins to settle as I say this, reforming the circle once again. There's a clear shift in mood, but it's not as bad as it could have been. Eventually, Morgan loudly clears his throat. "Let's just move on to someone else," he suggests, glancing around the circle. He stops at Martina. "Martina, truth or dare?" This question has power, immediately tugging the room back into a state of quiet intimacy and simmering tension. "Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first." I find myself repeating this phrase over and over, the mantra cascading through my mind and rushing across my brain like soapy water. I'm okay. Everything's fine. It was just a stupid movie. Martina considers the query, taking her time. Her facial expressions begin to playfully shift, each one revealing something new and exciting. The next thing I know, a ridiculous terror film is the last thing on my mind. "Dare," Martina finally replies. My skin tingles faintly as she says this. Morgan smiles, unmistakably craving this answer. It appears he has a great dare locked and loaded. "I dare you to get locked in the closet for 7 minutes with the person you like." My blood runs cold, a surge of chilly discomfort drifting through me. My eyes are trained on Martina like a hawk's, deeply invested in her decision as she surveys the group. I'm flooded with a bizarre state of self-awareness, yearning for Martina to choose me, but struggling to accept the context of this desire. The emotions are so powerful that I'm actually trembling, shivering with nervous anticipation. What is it about my friend that I find so utterly fascinating? I want to be near her, but not in a weird way, obviously. Not like I'm gay or something. As Martina's sparkling green eyes pass over me, I feel my body clench tight with anticipation, aching for her to stop and prompt the whole group to erupt in a giant laugh. We go with it, heading into the closet where we could giggle together over this little comedy bit. Martina's gaze suddenly halts in my direction. Thank you, Jesus. Parker, Martina announces, pointing at the guy sitting next to me. A wave of aching disappointment pulses through my frame. While the rest of the circle lets out a fit of excited chatter, I just stare at Martina and watch as she rises to her feet. Parker stands as well, and soon enough the two of them are heading toward the bedroom closet for a stomach-churning bout of alone time. Parker's not even religious, I suddenly realize. He's not a congregation member, not even a Cape Catholic, or some other kind of lukewarm backslider. What the heck does Martina see in him? What doesn't she see in me? Martina and Parker slip inside the closet and shut the door, disappearing from view. The nauseating, heartbreaking sickness within me has nothing to do but grow. And soon enough, I found myself too overwhelmed to remain still any longer. My breathing heavy, I climb to my feet and make a break for the exit. Rose! Isaiah calls out, startled by my sudden departure. I leave the bedroom and slam the door behind me, so overwhelmed with raw emotion that tears are welling up in my eyes. I'm as analytical as they come. Yet in this moment, I find myself unable to parse what's happening within my body. These sensations don't make any sense, but my understanding of that fact doesn't seem to taper their ferocity. It just upsets me even more. I stand in the dark hallway, struggling to catch my breath as I drift between worlds. Behind me is the closed door of a childish truth or dare game, a place that suddenly brought me immense sorrow and confusion for reasons I still can't comprehend. Before me is the rest of the party, a raucous scene where secular kids I've never met mingle freely with congregation members in a hedonistic free-for-all. It's a spiritual battlefield, and while it doesn't offer as much pain as the room behind, there's still plenty of chaos. Hey, comes an unfamiliar voice. A tall, messy-haired partier stumbling down the hallway. He stops before me, bracing himself against the wall as he sways in and out of my personal bubble. You're hot. I say nothing in return. Trash party, huh? The sloppy visitor continues, his words tumbling over one another. Isaiah's pretty cool. These kids are fucking cringe. You want a drink? Like a real drink? He holds up a water bottle, but the scent causes me to wrinkle my nose in disgust. Hello? The guy pushes forward. I should probably be more annoyed, but all I can think about right now is Martina. My heart was viciously ripped from my chest, and now nothing else seems to register. Close my eyes and count the rhythmic tapping of my fingers, struggling to calm down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 2, 1. 1. Then repeat. Be strong and of good courage, and do not fear nor be afraid of them, I recite softly under my breath. For the Lord your God, he is the one who goes with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you. Can still hear my suitor mumbling to himself, his frustrated tone growing steadily quieter as he returns to the fray. When I open my eyes, the partier is gone, but my solitude is short-lived. There are 2 rooms at the end of the hallway, the one we were playing in and the second bedroom mirroring the first. They're similar in size, and if I had to guess, I'd say this other belongs to Isaiah's older brother. He's not around tonight, but it appears someone else is enjoying the space. Standing at the center of this dimly lit room is the pale woman smiling that same crooked grin and silently gazing at me with her vacant white eyes. This is the best look at her I've ever gotten. As we stand, motionless, I carefully take her in. Cadaverous, eldritch, puzzling, You're not real, I find myself announcing. You're just stress. To be honest, she doesn't feel like stress. Now that I'm seeing this woman up close, the idea that she's just some figment of my imagination is getting much harder to swallow. Previously, her appearances were fraught with movement and shadow, a vague glimpse of something otherworldly. This moment, however, is as quiet and grounded as it gets. The pale woman has weight in my world, a substance to her form. For the first time, I can fully make out the bizarre length of her fingers. Approximately 3 times as long as any typical human digits. They're thin and spidery, twitching ever so slightly in the shadows. The collar around her neck is so tight that it makes me feel like I'm choking. A sturdy iron band that clasps in the middle. From here, I can make out the name tag on her on a peculiar red work polo. It reads Pashid. I know that name, though just barely. The unique title ringing a faint bell in the darkest recesses of my mind. It takes a moment for all of the pieces to add up. They sort through hazy memories of various religious tomes until suddenly, a spark of recognition becomes a roaring blaze. Pashid is a demon. I'm shaking so hard that my teeth are chattering, not just out of fear, but from the gelid sensation that overwhelms my body. What do you want? I ask, the words barely rattling their way from between my lips. The woman says nothing. She slowly tilts her head to the side, as though this is also her first time really taking me in. It feels like this moment lasts forever. The two of us just watching each other with genuine curiosity until finally, without a shred of warning, the pale woman turns and walks directly towards the wall. But she doesn't slow down as she approaches the barrier, causing a startled gasp to escape my throat when she walks right through it and disappears completely. A faint blue sizzle lies in her wake, flickering with uncanny illumination, then disappearing just as soon as it arrived. Seconds later, the shrieking begins. I burst back into the Truth or Dare room to find everyone staring at the closet door in wide-eyed horror. A few loud thumps rumble from within, but the more apparent sounds are a gut-churning cacophony of Parker and Martina screaming in hysterical fear. It's only now that I realize this closet is directly behind the wall Pashid just walked through. The frantically spinning gears of my mind catch as I spring into action, marching in a direct route towards the closet door. Get them out of here! Get them out of there! I scream. I reach out to grab the handle, but before I get the chance, the door flies open so hard it punches a hole through the wall beside it. I cry out in alarm, jumping back as Martina topples out with a tremendous thump and lands on the floor, her eyes huge and glassy as she stares up at me in a frozen expression of grotesque panic. There's something confusing about her pose, and it takes me a moment to realize Martina's head has been violently twisted in a perfect half rotation. The bones of her neck have shattered, pressing awkwardly against the inside of her skin and threatening to punch through. Meanwhile, the pale woman is nowhere to be found. But Parker's complexion is just as pallid as he stands in shock, mumbling to himself, while tears stream down his face. The room erupts in a choir of screams. And that's the end of chapter 3.